Good evening and welcome. Thank you for joining us for today's presentation. My name is Michelle Zepeda, and I'm the program coordinator at Waterford Place Cancer Resource Center. Waterford Place provides programs and services free of charge for anyone impacted by a cancer diagnosis that supports whole person care. I would like to introduce our speaker for today, Dr. Bhatia, radiation oncologist from Rush Copley Medical Center. Dr. Bhatia is a board-certified radiation oncologist who completed her training at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, and has been in practice for over 8 years. Having witnessed the benefits of integrative medicine, Dr. Bhatia has a keen interest in integrative oncology, nutrition, and emotional well-being. She is currently a fellow of the Andrew Weil Center for Integrative Medicine. Thank you, Dr. Bhatia, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And thank you so much for this opportunity to speak about a topic that I think is extremely important, nutrition. So a few thoughts about nutrition before we start getting into the presentation. This is a topic that I actually realized was not really taught to us in medical school. And so most of the learning I had was actually during my fellowship in my own integrative medicine studies. And the data is overwhelming of how important nutrition is. They actually say that 60 to 70% of all diseases in the United States are related to diet and lifestyle alone. So if we can control our nutrition and if we can work with our lifestyle, we can live longer, we can stay healthy, and we can decrease the risk of cancer recurrence, decrease even the incidence of cancer. And so in this talk, I'm actually going to talk about all of the important role of nutrition and then different types of diets and how to do a healthy diet. And I also wanted to kind of emphasize that as I was also doing, my research and studies, I realized that so many important medical societies, the American Cancer Society, the JNCI, and so forth, all of them were really recommending a big nutrition intervention for patients to the point where patients who had nutrition intervention actually lived longer. They had less chance of disease recurrence. And so now at Copley, what we're doing is we're sort of starting a pilot program. And it's a study right now just geared for patients with non-metastatic breast cancer, where we are having them go through nutrition intervention. We're going to see the benefits of it. So I'm really excited to talk about this. So we'll go ahead and get started. Whoops. So before we get started into the actual talk, let's just take a moment to breathe. And I want to thank you guys again for, letting me be a part of your evening. Some of you are coming from work. Some of you have just had a long day at home. Some of you may be struggling with what's going on in your own life personally, or even what's going on, the craziness in the world around us. And so this is time that you've actually taken and you've given to listen to me, which I really appreciate. And this is time that you've taken for yourself. So if you can, try to find a quiet place. And if you can, try to sit down. And I'm actually going to cover up the camera portion, so this way you're not distracted looking at me. And take a second, and when in a seated posture, just kind of close your eyes for a second. Take a big, deep breath in and out. One more time. And out. At this point, you may want to put your hand either on your heart, or you can keep your hands, on your legs, whatever is comfortable for you. And just kind of focus it on your breath. Focus on the inhale and the exhale. Feel all that oxygen going into the lungs, oxygenating those lungs. And then exhaling all of the worries out. Let go of the tensions of the day. Let the stresses and the problems that your mind is trying to fix, let them sort of wash over you like waves crashing on an ocean. This is time that you've taken for yourself, and you're here. Very proud of you for honoring yourself. And let's thank our bodies for how strong our bodies are. Sometimes we take for granted how much they do for us. Let's thank our legs for giving us the ability to walk and take us to places. Let's thank our stomach for digesting all the food that we put in our bodies throughout our entire lives. The nourishing food, the junk food, everything, and our stomach digests it each time without fail. And you're here. Let's thank our heart for supplying all that nourishing blood to our body and giving us life. Let's thank our brain for helping us make decisions and helping us cope with stressful situations. Let's thank our bodies for everything that it's done for us and how strong our bodies are. Let's take another moment to breathe. Take a big deep breath in and a big sigh out. And now we'll begin into our talk. So you may want to have a pad of paper with you. You may want to take some notes, or this will also be recorded so you can refer to it later. And I want this talk to be kind of a fun, relaxing experience, because I know it's the end of the day and, there's the last thing you want to do is listen to a lecture. So I'll try to make it as enjoyable as possible. So what are you eating today? Maybe you're eating dinner right now. Maybe you just ate dinner. Take a moment to just kind of reflect on what you ate throughout the day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And let's talk a little bit about nutrition. Why is nutrition so important? So we are what we eat. And I like this diagram because you could see this person in the green is, full of vegetables. And the other one, there's burgers and fries. And the reason why this is important is because our body is made up of proteins and nutrients that we have ingested. So let's ingest good things in our body that's going to make us feel good. And let's make it enjoyable while we're doing it. One of the hard things about, good nutrition that I hear from patients often is, dieting is so hard, foods don't taste good. So let's find a way to make healthy foods taste good and also learn about why it's so important to eat clean and eat so good. And I want to start off with obesity is a huge growing pandemic in the United States. So as I had mentioned earlier, 60 to 70% of all diseases in the United States are related to either diet or lifestyle. And this is something that I feel is not well addressed in our culture as far as nutrition and even in healthcare with patients. And so I think the more that you know, the more you can become informed. So more than 33% of adults in the United States are obese, according to the CDC. And this number has actually risen over the past 20 years. And I'll kind of go over the reasons why it's risen. A lot of it has to do with farming practices, more use of pesticides, less use of organic food, the change, more industrialization throughout the US. But regardless, whatever the reason, the number has risen over the past 20 years. And if you look at the state of Illinois alone, more than 1/3 of the people in the state are obese. So this is a map, and it's basically showing the different colors and the different rates of obesity. So if you look at the dark burgundy red, those states which are dark burgundy red actually have greater than 35% of their state is obese. And so you can see some of our neighboring states, and you look at Illinois, it's not burgundy red, but there still is a significant number of obesity in the United States. And why is this so important? How does a poor diet hurt you? So obesity and poor nutrition can actually decrease life up to 20 years. And there's a strong link between heart disease and cancer. There's actually studies which have shown that 1/3 of all cancer deaths in the United States are related to diet. This I found to be so fascinating, this piece of information, because this is something that if we learn about nutrition and diet early, we can actually prevent, some of these diseases from coming on. And there's actually another statistic. If women follow a healthy diet and lifestyle, almost 100,000 breast cancer cases can be avoided. And this number is actually 89,000, but it's pretty close to 100,000. So diet has a really big impact on our body. And why? How is obesity related to cancer? How is nutrition related to cancer? So what happens is, let's say you reach for, that hamburger or the fries or a Coke or soda, which has a lot of processed, chemicals in it, or I'm going to even say hot dogs. Processed meats is actually in this. Processed meats and deli meats, hot dogs, and processed meats in general, believe it or not, according to the WHO, is in the same category as smoking. So just like we tell patients, or just like, you try not to smoke, and it's considered extremely risky for cancer, so is eating a significant amount of processed meat. And I was actually surprised, why was this knowledge not given to me in medical school or even in residency? I learned about it through my own, fellowship training with the Integrative Medicine Center. But now that I have it, I want to share it with everyone. And so let's say, let's say someone was to reach for food that is unhealthy. What happens is that unhealthy food actually creates stress on the body because it leads to inflammation. And in the subsequent slides, I'll kind of show you how that inflammation works. And the other thing which happens is because there's inflammation, now there's these oxidants in your body, which are actually used to help, build your body, help repair your body, help you feel stronger, help you feel good. They're part of the repair mechanisms. But now all of those oxidants, those helpers in your body, are being used to fight off the inflammation that just got created because you ingested the food. And what happens after a while, this cycle of inflammation, like if you look at the triangle, leads to more cell production. And there's a strong link between inflammation and cancer, and inflammation and aging. And so there's a strong connection between inflammation and nutrition. Acute inflammation, it's necessary for the body to heal itself. So just like you get a cut or scrape, there's acute inflammation. You get a cut or scrape, all of the cells come nearby and you'll see like a scab forming. That's inflammation. That's good. You want there to be inflammation. You want there to be a scab that forms over, you want your wound to heal. However, if it keeps on continuing, if this wound just never heals because you're constantly tearing at the wound with bad food that you're eating, and I know I'm being a little dramatic here, it turns into states of chronic inflammation. And chronic inflammation can lead to tissue damage, illness, and disease. And examples of illnesses associated with an upregulated inflammatory state include heart disease, cardiovascular disease, obesity, a metabolic syndrome, diabetes, depression, arthritis, asthma, inflammatory bowel disease, cancer also being one of them, and the list goes on. And the other thing which I found was interesting is poor diet is often associated with poor habits. You typically don't see someone who's eating really clean and healthy and, they're smoking all the time, or, usually people who are eating unhealthy may also be smoking, may also not be working out as much, and so a lot of times you make a small shift meaning for your diet, and you start to notice, but my body feels better. I'm starting to eat healthier. You start craving healthier foods. You're going to start craving a healthier lifestyle. So, I think it's all a domino effect. And so shifts in nutrition can actually lead to shifts in other aspects of your life and living a better, optimally healthy, well-being, well-regulated life, which is what I want to help you guys with. So there's benefits to good diet. Improved diet results in lifestyle changes and saying yes to things that are healthy for your mind, body, and soul. And so make yourself a priority in life. Often, I've been guilty of this too. We're so busy with work, and we're so busy with family, and we're so busy just taking care of everybody else. We don't make ourselves a priority. Yet in order to fully be present for everything, we have to be healthy ourselves. So let's use this time to make ourselves a priority and learn about good nutrition. So there's a lot of benefits to healthy and balanced diet: improved heart health, improved mood and well-being. And the reason why this is related to mood and well-being, which I think is especially important now because we're heading into winter, COVID cases are coming up, we're in isolation, it can definitely have an effect on mood and well-being for many patients and for many people. And if you eat food and your stomach is working so hard to digest it, it's actually diverting blood to digest the food, and that affects your mood. The other thing is the food can release harmful chemicals, stress-related chemicals, oxidative stress that also affects your mood. So if eating a healthy and balanced diet, you'll start to feel better. Some people will, even if you're trying to lose weight, it will result in weight loss, the weight that's not needed. And all of that can be linked to having better well-being, which the weight loss can lead to joint, improvement in joint health and arthritis, and a decrease in the risk of cancer. So there was a study that looked at over 2,000 patients with breast cancer that showed that nutrition intervention alone decreased the risk of relapse in these breast cancer patients. And then afterwards, there was a large prospective study where prospective means that they looked at patients moving forward. It wasn't like they looked at the patients who had already been studied. It's like they enrolled the patients on the study and then looked at them moving forward. Sort of what we're doing actually at Copley with our breast cancer study. And they looked at patients who followed nutritional guidelines, and they noticed an improvement in cancer recurrence and overall survival. So yes, nutrition does not replace, chemotherapy or radiation, which is extremely important, but it can add to it. So it can help you live longer, and it can actually help those therapies work better as well. So why is nutrition such a big issue now? We talked about, that the obesity rates were rising. So a lot of things have changed. So if you look at years ago, like, our parents' generation, or even before that, a lot of the food was truly farm to table. Right now, there's a lot of processing of food that's going on. And I mean, I grew up with, Oscar Mayer bologna and hot dogs and all that type of stuff, Pizza Hut pizza being on the dinner table, all that type of stuff, a lot of processed foods. Prior to that, a lot of the food was not processed. And also there's been a lot of processing of whole grains, and especially wheat. So I have been reading a lot that a lot of the wheat bread that we get, it's actually been so processed. It's like 3 years processed. So if you can try to get whole wheat bread, which is sprouted wheat bread or organic wheat bread, it's much better for you. And it's interesting because, we also have high rates of celiac disease, which are related to processing of food. So basically, there's been a lot of processing of foods. Farming practices have changed. There used to be small farms. Now the farms have become big. They're bought out by bigger industries and companies. There's more use of pesticides. There's also processing of meat. And then there's this whole idea of genetically modifying fruits and vegetables for mass production. We'll talk a little bit about that. So all of these things can change the quality of the food that we're eating, and more inflammation. There's more fast food companies. Our culture also is becoming more industrialized, more, related to work. And so we don't have as much time as we used to. And then I want to add, you add things like devices like iPhones and TVs and things like that. So families aren't coming together as much as they used to have dinner together at the table, to have a conversation where people are cooking and sharing ideas. And so all of these things, I really truthfully feel, are contributing to what is happening with our nutrition currently. So let's explore the world of diets. And I don't want it to feel like this. This I thought was a funny slide. It says, I'm on that diet where you cut out all carbs, all sugar, and all happiness. So the point of dieting is to not be miserable, because if you follow a diet and you're miserable, you're not going to stick with it. The goal is to be happy in life. If you're happy in life, your stress goes down, you live longer, you feel better. So we want, the whole goal is to talk about diets where you can have, the foods that you crave too. So my philosophy is everything in moderation. So let's say you want to have that burger, or, the fries or the soda or whatever it is that, that your pleasure is, you can still have it, but just have it in moderation. And then counteract it by eating a lot of whole green vegetables. We'll talk about some of those things, and some vegetables which are good for certain types of cancers, so that when you do eat that burger, when you do eat that fries, you have a lot of cushioning from all of the other fruits and vegetables that so your body is think of it like a machine, like a car. You're putting good oil into the car to the point where it's just like running really well, and it's very efficient. And it's very clean. And then when you put something that is not so clean, creates inflammation, your body can handle it because it's been eating mostly clean. So that's, and then this slide I thought was kind of funny. This is a guy, and basically this is his dinner, and he does not look happy. And so this is not the point of dieting either. There's a lot of diets out there as well. And, and I'm going to talk about which of the ones have the most data behind it. But any diet where it's super strict and it cuts out certain things and it says you can't have them, those diets, while they may help you lose weight, they're not sustainable long term. The best diet is to be on a diet that you can literally maintain for your whole life and will help you lose weight, and will be in a gradual, healthy fashion, and also like help your overall organs, cardiovascular health and so forth. So there's the other thing I want to talk about, which there's this synergistic effect of nutrients. It's kind of a busy slide. What this basically means is that certain foods work with certain foods. So nutrients work together. So when you eat a vegetable, we typically don't want you to eat just one vegetable all the time. We say eat a wide variety, rainbow of colors. And the reason is it's not because it looks pretty. I mean, it makes, your plate look very appetizing and pleasing. But each vegetable, each color actually has a certain nutrient that plays a certain role and a certain function. So think of a symphony. Your body is a symphony, and there's a note. Each vegetable, each fruit, each meat, protein, grain has a certain role in that symphony. And together, it makes, beautiful music. And so each nutrient works with another nutrient synergistically that allows the body to function. And good nutrition and diet decreases the inflammation. So it allows nutritional supplements to be used for processes that are involving cell repair, cell growth. In other words, you are freeing up the body by eating healthy and by eating clean. You are freeing up the body to actually do processes which are a normal part of your function to help you live longer. Instead of like your body being like, okay, oh, she just ate, this, and now there's all this inflammation. I got to go patch this up. Oh, I got to go patch this up. Now all of these nutrients are actually being used to help your body work efficiently. And that's why many people, when they start, that's why all these studies have showed such a big effect with nutrition intervention, because of the synergistic effect. And the other thing is some nutrients can actually cause another nutrient to function. So for example, vitamin C increases the absorption of magnesium, and it can, these things can kind of work together. So that's why you want to have a whole, well-balanced diet. So this is a list of the different type of diets. The one I'm going to really kind of focus on is the Mediterranean diet. This is kind of the basis of, if you're in the course, if you're in the study for the nutrition program at Rush Copley for breast cancer, a lot of the recommendations by the American Cancer Society are actually based off the Mediterranean diet. And the Mediterranean diet also has a lot of roots in the anti-inflammatory diet. The Mediterranean diet actually has some of the most robust data behind it showing a benefit. And it was inspired by the eating habits of Greece, southern Italy, and Spain. And when you look at, some of these regions, they actually have the highest longevity, the highest rates of living. And they studied they studied what they were eating. What they noticed is they were consuming a high amount of fat, but it was the good fats. And they had some of the lowest rates of heart disease. And so they eat a lot of beans, and they also eat a lot of fish. And that's a big, proponent of their diet. And this is kind of what their pyramid looks like. And I'm going to go through this slide a little bit fast because we're going to revisit this pyramid again. So the Mediterranean diet is the one which has actually had the most amount of data behind it. And so how do you do this diet? So basically the old diet that was recommended, if you look at this, pyramid on the left-hand side, you see the bottom part is basically grains and bread and pasta. And then the second top is vegetables. So they used to say, eat a lot of grains and then eat your vegetables and then do your dairy and then do your meat. So that is actually completely incorrect. The bottom of your plate, the bottom part, the thing that you should be eating the most should be the vegetables. So the best way I like to describe it is take a plate. Plate has 3 portions. The largest portions of your plate should be filled with vegetables and fruit. More vegetables than fruit because fruit has some sugar. Vegetables have a lot of really important healing properties, good fiber and so forth. We'll go over some of these different types of vegetables as well. And the recommendations are 5 to 7 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. Now, when I learned about this, I realized I wasn't even eating that. And sometimes it's hard to get it in. And what I would recommend is if you have not been eating fruits and vegetables that much, like I remember I was going through a history with a patient. When we sat down, it turned out that her breakfast was mostly carbs and dairy. And then her lunch was 1 serving of vegetables and her dinner was mostly protein. So when you're only doing 1 or 2 servings of vegetables a day, to jump to 5 to 7 can be sometimes difficult for your stomach to digest because your stomach isn't used to it. So you want to slowly work up to it. And as you work up to it, you may notice, some gas and some burping, and all that stuff is normal. But if you start to have indigestion, then you want to slow down. For some people, they have no issues jumping into all the vegetables. So what I like to say is if you're at 1 to 2 servings of vegetables a day, gradually increase to 3 to 4 or 2 to 3, then 3 to 4, and see how your stomach does, week by week. Now, this is how you can sort of train your body and train your stomach to then get used to digesting some of these vegetables and see which vegetables work for you and which vegetables don't. If you have a sensitive stomach, raw vegetables may not be easy to digest for you, so cooking your vegetables may work for you, and steaming is actually the best way to cook your vegetables. For example, broccoli steamed for 5 minutes, sweet potatoes steamed for 5 minutes. If you steam the vegetables too long, you actually lose their nutrients. So the second part of this pyramid is you see the grains, and then you see there's, dairy and cheese and there's meat and so forth. And on the top, you can still have the foods that you enjoy, dessert and chocolate and things like that. So if you look at a plate, so imagine you have your dinner plate, the bottom, fill it with fruits and vegetables. And then there's one other corner of the plate because it's divided into 3. You can fill that up with some grains, rice or quinoa, whatever grains you like, even bread. Potatoes are considered, they're actually a carb, but, you can fill that up. And then the other part, you can fill it up with some protein. Now, fish is an extremely important protein. And I know for some it's an acquired taste. And I have been kind of, pushing fish on some of my patients, the ones who are not vegetarian, because it has so many health benefits. And we'll talk about some of the healthiest fish for you with the least mercury content. There is a difference between the fat profile between animal protein, which is like chicken, beef, pork, and so forth, and a different profile between fish. And if you are going to have animal protein, try to get organic as much as possible. For beef, definitely get organic. So we talked about with processed meats, your, deli meats and processed meats in general, which, it's interesting. I went to a medical conference and the lunch that they served was processed meat. This was for cancer physicians. And of course, I knew that, processed meats are, there's a strong association between that and cancer. So I avoided it. But I was just thinking, I was like, gosh, someone needs to educate these people. So I'm excited to educate you guys about that. So processed meats, definitely avoid because they're in the same category as smoking as far as your cancer risk. Now, beef it's called a probable carcinogen. So it's not a direct link to cancer, but it could be linked to cancer. When you further study beef, it's really the beef that has been processed that is not organic. So try to get organic beef. Our farming practices are so responsible of why, there's so many links between meat and cancer because there's a lot of very poor farming practices. And so the meat, try to get organic as much as possible. Eggs, same thing. And then same thing with your dairy. So this is kind of a picture of what I was talking about, how to balance your plate. And apologize if this slide is a little bit blurry, but basically you see that like the main portion of your plate is actually filled with fruits and vegetables. This time it's actually vegetables. Then there is some protein and fat, which in this situation, I think this person is eating salmon. And then there are some starchy carbs. Now this is ideally. Can you eat like this every time? No. You're going to want to have variety and I encourage that. And, again, everything in moderation. And what I recommend is I've personally never found, going cold turkey to a new diet works. I think you have to sort of gradually introduce your body to these types of foods. And what you'll notice is with time is your body will actually start craving this. So for example, like if you like broccoli, eat it. eat broccoli, eat a little bit more of it. After a while, you will start to notice that your body will actually crave the broccoli versus mashed potatoes, believe it or not. And I'm going to use a personal example. So a year ago, I had a stomach condition, which led to my interest in integrative medicine and this whole fascination with nutrition, where I had to heal my stomach through diet and through nutrition. And I actually had to cut out sugar out of my diet for about 9 months. It took about 9 months for my stomach to fully heal. Now, it got to a point where I was literally like looking at the back of labels and not eating anything that had sugar in it. You would be shocked how many foods out there, they just stick sugar in there or high fructose corn syrup in there. It's so just, add a little bit of taste. There's so many preservatives in these foods. And I thought, how can I do it? And so I did it because I had to. And I remember at the end of those, towards the end of the 9 months, I was feeling a ton better, getting back to baseline. Had a slice of my favorite cake from bakery in LA. And it was like, I felt so sick afterwards. It was like, because my receptors in my tongue were not used to that much sugar. And what I was craving was fruits and, peanut butter, which is what used to be my dessert during those, 8 to 9 months. So it really taught me that, gosh, my body just got used to, eating a different way. And then gradually, I started to eat more desserts, and now I just ate a cookie the other day, but, again, everything in moderation. But so it just kind of shows that with time, as you're eating cleaner, your body starts to become more conditioned and starts to crave some of these foods. So you want to eat a diet that's very high in plants, vegetables more than fruit, more than meat, eat less sugar. I try to, decrease sugar as much as possible. Sugar is definitely inflammatory. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to cut out all sugar completely. I had a certain condition where I had to do that for 9 months or, for that period of time. But, eat as little sugar as possible. And then try to eat whole foods, meaning foods as close to the natural form as possible, food that is not processed. Stay away from things which say high fructose corn syrup. So the reason why high fructose corn syrup is so prevalent in our country, especially in the Midwest, is because we have a lot of corn and you make sugar from corn. And this is actually not very healthy for you. It is very processed and it is very high in inflammation. It's better to just eat regular sugar at that point, or, organic sugar or cane sugar. And try to stay away from whole wheat breads, which are heavily processed. Just try to get organic bread or try to get sprouted wheat breads. And then the bottom point is, I think I've kind of talked about it a lot, avoid deli meats or processed meats. It's in the same category as cigarette or exposure to asbestos. And eat a wide variety, rainbow of fruits and vegetables, because each of them have this thing called phytochemicals that plays a role in your body. So for example, the beta carotene from carrots can play a role. The vitamin C from from peppers can play a role in your body. So each of these vegetables, the colors actually gives it a role. And the other thing which I found fascinating, now fruits and vegetables, which are the most brightest in color, like if you go to the grocery store, you see the pale fruit, you see the brightly colored fruit. The brightly colored fruit usually tastes better, provided it's not GMO. We're going to talk about that. Or, natural fruit that's brighter in color actually has more nutrients. And so try to go and find the fruit that's like the freshest. It's going to have the most nutrients. Now, what are omegas? So this is why I was talking about fish is so important. So omegas are actually a type of fatty acid, and there's 2 types. There's omega-3 and there's omega-6, and you don't have to know the details of this. One of them causes inflammation. The other one decreases inflammation. Now, what's interesting is your body actually needs both. You need 3 and you need 6. What happens, and there's a picture of, of what it looks like below. What happens is in the Western diet, in the United States diet, we generally eat a lot of more animal protein and saturated fats, which actually increase our omega-6s. And this is linked to heart disease and cardiovascular disease and other types of disease. So you want to try to eat foods that have higher omega-3 so you can sort of tip that ratio. And foods which are high in omega-3s are your fish. Fish have a ton of omega-3s. And if you look at areas in the world where they have the greatest lifespan, I believe it's Okinawa, Japan, in the Mediterranean. A lot of those regions are heavy fish regions. Iceland have some of the lowest cholesterol levels, and they eat a lot of fish. So fish has a lot of benefits for you. What happens is with fish, you have to be careful because some fish are very high in mercury. So the fish with the lowest mercury are salmon has low mercury. Try to get wild caught if you can, or farm raised from a reliable place. Whole Foods and some of these good grocery stores, Jewel Osco, they usually have good farm raised fish. Cod is a good fish with low mercury, and believe it or not, sardines. So sardines is controversial because many people don't like the taste of it. So me personally, I never thought I would eat a sardine. You asked me 2 years ago. When I learned the health benefits of it, they not only have tons of protein, one can has so much protein. It's like almost like 18 or 20 grams of protein, loaded with omega-3s. One can of sardines can actually be almost your daily requirement of omega-3s in a day. And they're also loaded with vitamin D because they have tiny bones in them, which I know it sounds gross, but when you eat them, you won't notice it. So when I learned all the health benefits of sardines, I started eating them, on a more regular basis. And there are recipes and ways that you can, introduce it so you don't have so much of that fishy taste. You can use it in place of tuna for tuna salad. So I just, wanted to mention the health benefits of the sardines, and they're very easy to get as well. I would, again, with fish, you want to not do like fish every single day. I would kind of alternate, take a little break, because you do want to kind of balance out the mercury a little bit. And, you can also do the animal protein in between. So in addition, talking about, omega-3s and omega-6s, according to a NAHNES study, the U.S. adults are not meeting the standards for fish or omega-3 intake. And foods that are high in omega-6, which are corn oil, soy oil, vegetable oil, and processed foods, are in a Western, a Western diet, are associated with inflammation. So sometimes, it's hard to get all of your omega-3s from food. So a lot of people will take fish oil. And this has been shown to be proven to, be helpful for, cardiovascular disease and so forth. So if you are a vegetarian or fish is not your thing, there's other foods that are higher in omega-3s. Flax seeds, which also have benefit in cancer protection, specifically prostate cancer. Nuts are really great. And avocados are foods which are high in omega-3s. If you literally Google foods high in omega-3s, a huge list is going to come up. And so we talked a little bit about the benefits of, omega-3s. They have an anti-inflammatory effect. I've actually been putting some of my patients on fish oil too during radiation treatments to help, decrease with anti-inflammation. Omega-3s are also beneficial for arthritis because it's an anti-inflammatory. Now, the next thing I want to switch gears to talk about organic food. Why is organic food important? So if you compare organic food to conventionally grown fruits and vegetables, organic food has a much lower level of pesticide residues, heavy metals, and nitrates. And there are studies that show that pesticide residues have been linked with hormonal imbalances and diseases. So that's why organic food plays a very important role. And also organic food generally has a greater availability of nutrients. It's more bioavailability of nutrients in general. The issue with organic food in our country is it's so expensive. So there are foods, there's something called organic on a budget. It's called the Dirty Dozen. Sometimes it can even be changed to like the Dirty 20. So these are foods which have the highest pesticide residue. So if you're not going to do anything, just try to get these foods. This is the EWG. They come out with, a new list every year. If you won't do anything, if it's hard to get organic food, which I understand, then try to get these foods organic. And sometimes, I will even just get these foods organic and then just everything else, just, get regular, because it does get pretty pricey. So berries actually have the heaviest pesticide residue: strawberries, blueberries, spinach, kale, pears, celery, potatoes, all of these are on the list. And meat, you should always try to get organic as much as possible, and also hormone-free. So what is non GMO? So GMO means that it's genetically modified. And what that basically does is they're actually producing these fruits and vegetables almost in a laboratory. And it's actually produced on a farm. But what they do is they take genes and they put it into the fruits and vegetables. So it's going to change the way that the fruits and vegetables are. Now, these genes are not made to make the food more nutritious for you. They're actually made to make the food look more appealing, to make the fruit and vegetable more resistant to pesticides so they can spray different things. Bottom line, it changes the nutritional value of the fruit and vegetables, and it makes it less digestible. So I would recommend non-GMO, non-genetically modified, meaning natural, whole, just the way we came on earth. This is what you want to put into your body as much as possible. Again, everything, in moderation, whatever you're able to afford in your budget. And there are stickers on fruits and vegetables, and they'll say non-GMO. And so you want to look for those stickers. They'll also say USDA organic. Those are a couple of things that you want to look for as well. Now, then we'll also talk a little about cooking oils. So this is kind of a little bit of a busy slide. You don't want to cook with any oil past their smoke point. What is a smoke point? You cook with the oil and it's smoking, that oil is now becoming carcinogenic, meaning procancerous. So good oils for cooking, coconut oil, you can cook at high heat, canola or butter. You can actually butter, organic butter at high heat works great. It's high in saturated fat, but it's not a carcinogen at high heat. Oils which are not good for cooking are oils with trans fatty acid, such as margarine. Those Pam cooking sprays are not good for you. It's better to just have an oil with a little bit more fat in it that's natural, and this way it's not procancerous. And you can actually look up smoke points for oil. So for example, olive oil is good for certain heats, and certain heats it's not. But in general, I think olive oil is pretty versatile. You can use it for multiple things. Now, because I have a special interest in breast cancer, I have a study open on it at Copley. I did a lot of research into special foods for breast cancer, but I also included foods for different types of cancers as well. So there are certain foods which are really helpful for breast cancer. They decrease, they are very protective for breast cancer. And they're in this family of cruciferous vegetables. Cruciferous vegetables, you don't have to remember the name. It basically looks like a tree. It looks hardy like a tree. It looks like you're eating a tree. And it does great things for your body. It goes into your gut. It just helps you with inflammation. It helps the body cell function, all sorts of really, really important properties. And many of those vegetables, broccoli, kale, Brussels sprouts, and bok choy, they're all part of the cruciferous. Cauliflower as well, I don't think it's listed on there. And then also green tea, which I know it's not a fruit or vegetable, has something called ECGC, and it's very beneficial for respiratory viruses, and it's a powerful antioxidant. And it also has anti-cancerous properties. Flax seeds are also have good anti-inflammatory properties and can improve the omega-3 to 6 ratio and are very protective for cancer, especially prostate cancer. Tomatoes have lycopenes, which are protective for prostate cancer. Now, all of these you want to do in moderation. Like, you don't want to just eat broccoli for weeks and weeks. You want to rotate your vegetables. Tomatoes, you also want to rotate them. And if you have some acidity and tomatoes give you acid, then, you want to back off on that. Now, with flax seeds, you want to get ground flax seeds. And it's really important to not expose them to oxygen or light, because then they become oxidized and they can actually become harmful. So you want to keep them in the bag, sealed, keep them in a cabinet or pantry. You can ground them fresh, that's great, but many people don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. So I want to sort of, talk a little bit about also, as we're coming to a close, your diet is not only what you eat, it's what you watch, what you listen to, what you read, the people you hang around. Be mindful of the things that you put into your body, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So all of this comes together to help you with function at your most optimal self. So in conclusion, there is a strong link between diet and cancer, with almost 100,000 breast cancer cases related to diet alone. And we talked about a healthy diet, if you remember the plate, with 5 to 7 servings of vegetables and fruit a day. Avoid processed meats and deli meats, as they increase your risk of cancer. Don't cook with an oil past its smoke point. And a diet high in omega-3 is powerful to fight inflammation. Try to get organic food when possible, and you can get organic food on a budget. And I wanted to actually add a little bit more about that point too. I learned that Costco actually has more organic food than Whole Foods, which I was surprised by, because Whole Foods is, very pricey. So there are places, and even Jewel, Osco, some of these other grocery stores, they actually have like huge organic sections where you can find good organic food. Farmers markets as well. And then I think the last 3 points are very important too. So the whole idea of eating, it's not just the food you put into your body, it's the whole energy around the food, the environment around the food. Try to create a practice around mealtime. And I know many times, I mean, I'm guilty of this too, TV on, looking at the phone while I'm eating. And when you're doing that, your mind is distracted. And just think how good it felt when we did that guided meditation in the beginning, when you were just kind of like focusing on yourself. So try to practice mindful eating, where as you're putting the food into your body, taste the food, see what it tastes like, see what it feels like. And this is actually a practice which will even get you to eat less, because you won't be scarfing food down. You'll be eating slowly and mindfully. And if you can, obviously with COVID, there's isolation restrictions, if you're living, with loved ones, try to create a practice around mealtime. Talk to each other, talk about your day. Make yourself a priority. We have one body, and let's take care of it. And it has served you so long, for such a long time. Let's thank it. Let's nourish it. Let's celebrate it. Thank you so much.